Tonight on NewsWatch, reversing his stance. What will the president's reversal on gay marriage do for his re-election campaign?
Plus, the future of driving. A new car provides the ultimate cruise control. We'll show you which internet giant stepped behind the wheel to create this new technology.
And the healing power of pets. How therapy dogs help people suffering from diabetes to post-traumatic stress disorder. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. President Obama heads to Hollywood tonight for an historic fundraiser. Good evening, I'm Lee Webb.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. He's expected to raise $15 million at the home of movie star George Clooney. It's an unprecedented amount for a single event, and it comes just one day after the president's big shift in thinking about gay marriage. Many are asking why the announcement now and what will be the political fallout. Heather Sells has the latest.
The president admitted that the vice president's remarks over the weekend forced him to speed up the timing of his announcement supporting gay marriage. But he said he would have come out before the nominating convention anyways, and he insisted that he did not make the decision for political gain.
I think it'd be hard to argue that somehow this is something that I'd be doing for political advantage, because, frankly, the politics, it's not clear how they cut.
But many find it hard to believe that the president would make a political calculation that he believes is not advantageous. Indeed, his campaign website is proudly touting his new position on gay marriage. That position has stirred up plenty of criticism, especially from the faith community. His own spiritual advisor, the Reverend Joel Hunter of Florida, says he told the president he's disappointed and disagrees. The head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops says Obama's remarks undermine the institution of marriage, and the president of the Southern Baptist Convention predicted that voters will hold Obama accountable for a calculated, politically expedient decision that completely ignores the biblical foundation of marriage. In Maryland, Bishop Harry Jackson agreed.
I was disappointed because I think this really needs to be something that people think about and not just kind of manipulated, if you would, by PR.
How this announcement will play politically is still far from certain. A recent Pew poll shows just 28% of registered voters say gay marriage will be very important to their vote this fall. But 31 states now, including North Carolina as of Tuesday, have approved traditional marriage amendments to their state constitutions. And analysts like Peter Spriggs of the Family Research Council say Obama's move could draw social conservatives to the Romney campaign.
I'm inclined to think that the percentage of people who are strongly opposed to same-sex marriage, particularly within the religious community, is probably larger than the percentage of people who strongly support it.
For now, the president says the issue is out of his hands, saying it's still up to individual states to decide on gay marriage. Heather Sells, CBN News.
And joining us now is Congressman Stephen Palazzo on Capitol Hill. Congressman Palazzo is a Republican from Mississippi, and in our D.C. bureau is Bishop Harry Jackson. Representative Palazzo, let me begin with you. What is the reaction among your colleagues to the president's announcement there on Capitol Hill?
Well, Lee, thank you for having me on your show. I can say, my colleagues they take a lot of what the president says because constantly his rhetoric's never matching up with the reality. We can go back to all of his State of the Union addresses. But we've got a lot of important issues that we're dealing with. Today we've voted on reconciliation to help avert the sequester of our military cuts that are coming at the end of this year. And we passed an appropriations budget for the Commerce, Science, and Justice Committee. So we're doing our job, but I can tell you from the amendment that we passed late last night and when we're in the middle of the House Armed Services Committee hearing, is that personally I believe marriage is between one man and one woman. I think the Bible is clear on that. But at the end of the day, it's not what I think personally. It's not what President Obama thinks personally. It's not what his administration and unelected bureaucrats think about it, it's what's on the books. It's what is the law. And we have a Defense of Marriage Act that basically defines in federal terms that marriage is between one man and one woman, and that military installations are federal property, and that should also apply on federal property. And that was the basis of my simple amendment last night.
I want to talk to you more about that in just a moment. Let me go to Bishop Harry Jackson in our bureau. Bishop Jackson, Christian leaders, including many in the African American community. I spoke to Pastor Alan McFarland from Portsmouth, Virginia today. He's surprised and disappointed by President Obama's stance. Do you believe it will hurt him politically among African Americans?
I think it could. The real question is, what did he mean? Lee, he said it was a personal issue. Well, why announce it if it's personal? I need to know what he is going to do with this information. Will there be another don't ask, don't tell kind of decision, another lack of enforcement of DOMA? And I also need to hear from Mitt Romney, what exactly do you want to do? After all, under Mitt Romney, we lost the first case of marriage in Massachusetts. Some argue that Mitt kind of muffed it. And so we need to talk to, and I'm initiating a group of people reaching out to the White House and to Mitt Romney and asking the question, what specifically are you guys going to do about this hallowed, sacred institution of marriage?
Yeah, Bishop Jackson, the pastors I spoke to today, about a dozen, all of them were disappointed and indeed angry at the president for making this pronouncement. And indeed, they plan to address their congregations about the issue this Sunday. What would you advise pastors across the country to say to their congregations?
I would advise them to say what I've just articulated, that we're upset. The institution is the first one that God has ordained. And then we demand that we hear from the president, not from a surrogate, not from someone else, and from Mitt Romney, the presumptive candidate of the Republican Party. We want to hear specifically, are you going to stand with the will of the people? Are you going to intervene in Maryland, for example, and try to prevent a marriage amendment from coming forth? What exactly does your declaration mean? And I think that would help clarify things. I've not been one of President Obama's biggest fans, but I want to hear from him, and I believe that people all over the country should just let that be the cry. Be more clear. Be more specific. I hope I'm communicating with you, Lee, the intensity of this.
You are, and Representative Palazzo, I wanted to get a sense from you. You're in Washington, but what have you heard from your constituency back in Mississippi along the Gulf Coast?
Well, I can tell you my constituency is firmly believes in marriage between one man and one woman. And, you know, for the president to come out and express his personal opinion, it doesn't surprise him. This Attorney General, Eric Holder, has already came out and said that he was no longer going to defend the Defense of Marriage Act. Right. You have unappointed or unelected political appointees who are sending out guidelines, you know, saying, hey, it's okay to have same-sex marriages on military installations and things like that. It's causing a lot of confusion. And that was the genesis of our amendment, was to clear up and clarify that DOMA does prevail over military installations and federal property.
Will that prevail, do you believe, in the other body, in the Senate as well? Do you have enough allies to get that passed through the Senate as well?
Well, I'd hate to speculate on that. I know the Senate needs to pass their own version of the National Defense Authorization Act, and it'll go to conference. And they may try to pull it out in conference. But again, I try to remind people this is an election year. There's 22 Democrats up for re-election. And they probably want to be careful on the votes that they take, because DOMA was passed in 1996 by an overwhelmingly bipartisan majority of the House, the Senate, and signed into law by the President of the United States. And like you mentioned a while ago, over 31 states have a constitutional amendment defining marriage between a man and a woman. Another 10 states have some form of statute on the books. And just this week, North Carolina passed it with overwhelming numbers. The American people people believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and he needs to clean out his ears and listen to the American people.
Well, we could go on for another 30 minutes on this topic. Representative Stephen Palazzo from Mississippi and Bishop Harry Jackson, we appreciate you being with us and providing your input on this important story.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Lee.
In other news, America's self-proclaimed toughest sheriff is facing off with the Justice Department. The DOJ is suing Maricopa County, Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio. It claims his department racially profiles Latinos in their immigration patrols. The sheriff claims the investigation was a politically motivated attack by the Obama administration. An airstrike today in Yemen killed another 5 al-Qaeda terrorists. Meanwhile, we're learning more about the man behind their latest failed terror plot. Ibrahim al-Asiri, considered al-Qaeda's best bomb maker, is still at large. The U.S. believes he's using things like cameras, computers, and even pets to hide explosives.
Very innovative in trying to find some way of getting a bomb onto an airplane that will evade detection from airport screeners.
We want to make sure that he doesn't have the opportunity to continue to build any device whatsoever, or impart his knowledge to anyone else who wants to build these devices.
Agents say al-Asiri absolutely hates America and won't stop trying to find ways to cause harm.
2 suicide car bombings in Damascus may push Syria closer to a civil war. At least 55 died and nearly 400 were wounded in the bombings. The city is controlled by forces loyal to President Bashar Assad, and the attacks may have been the work of anti-Assad forces. Opposition leaders claim Assad orchestrated the attacks, though, to create fear. 70 United Nations observers are in Syria to try to preserve a shaky ceasefire.
Sharia law has been creeping into America. Courts have even cited Islamic law in rulings. But one group of activists says Sharia is incompatible with the very foundations of U.S. law. They say look no further than the way women are mistreated under Sharia. Paul Strand has more.
Sharia law enslaves millions of women across the globe.
It is oppressive, it is violent, it does not identify women as citizens, and some jurists even in Sharia law do not identify women as human beings.
Sharia mandates women have guardians, and some Islamic countries view them legally as perpetual minors, never as adults. It allows husbands to divorce their wives at any time without reason. Worst of all, some 5,000 Muslim women die in so-called honor killings every year, which Islamic extremists declare imperative. That's why a vast coalition of groups represented by this panel is hoping to educate America about what they call Sharia's war on women.
Sharia takes an entirely different approach to their rights than would the American Constitution or a Declaration of Independence.
Cynthia Farahat fled Egypt rather than face military prison for her human rights work against Islam. She knows firsthand how harsh Sharia can be.
I'm almost here in America in exile for standing up for basic human rights and basic values under Sharia law. I lived under Sharia law all my life. I just came to America 6 months ago.
When it comes to marriage, Sharia law treats women as worse than second-class citizens.
The women living in Sharia are often in polygamous marriages, often in marriages where they do not have the freedom to pursue their education or pursue a career if that should interest them.
Some jurists like Ibn Hanbal would go as far as defining them as livestock.
These critics point out Islam is far more than just a religion, and the Quran commands the whole world must come under Sharia law.
They say Islam is deen and dawla, it's religion and state.
It encompasses every aspect of one's life.
They also warn Sharia law is now popping up in more and more areas of the U.S. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, from the internet to the interstate, web giant Google is hitting the road. We'll show you the new technology that could revolutionize the way we drive.
If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, call now for a new pain-free meter. These new meters are more accurate, they're easier to use, and the best news is you don't have to prick your fingers anymore. Call now, and Arriva Medical will send you one of these new meters for free. And if you have Medicare, your testing supplies may also be covered. Arriva makes it simple. They bill Medicare directly. There are no upfront costs. And they deliver your supplies right to your door for free. With these new meters, there's no coding, you don't have to prick your fingers, and some of these meters even talk.
Your blood glucose reading is 122.
And if you call 1-800-284-9762, we will send you a free Betty Crocker Diabetes Cookbook filled with delicious recipes.
Call Arriva today. You'd be glad you did.
Believe it or not, this is a catheter. It's the new SpeedyCath Compact for women. Now available from Liberator Medical, with full Medicare and private insurance reimbursement. Stay tuned for an exciting free offer. But first, meet Julie.
You know when you leave the house and you say, okay, I have my phone, I have my keys, I have my wallet, I'm good to go? Now, I always have to think of a catheter because I can't go without it. SpeedyCath came into my life and it is life-changing. They're tiny and thin and you can fit them in your back pocket. You can fit them anywhere you need them. This is a lipstick or lip gloss and this is the size of it. With this, you're only touching the outer plastic and you're never actually in contact with the catheter itself. You just really have to give a sample. That's all it needs is one sample and everyone's going to want them.
Now, here's that free offer I promised. Call Liberator Medical. Get your free SpeedyCath Compact sample 6-pack. Shipping is free. 1-800-595-1446. 1-800-595-1446.
The price of gas this summer may not be as high as predicted. The Energy Department has cut its cost forecast. They say drivers should expect to pay about $3.79 a gallon during the next few months. That's down 16 cents from earlier predictions and only slightly higher than last summer's average of $3.71. A decrease in oil prices is keeping gas prices steady currently, and that's good news. Google could soon be coming to a street near you. The tech giant, known for its influence over the web, has just been given a license to drive.
Some are calling it the ultimate cruise control. Heather Sells explains why the Google car doesn't need anyone behind the wheel.
Self-driving cars are now one step closer to becoming a reality. The state of Nevada has agreed to a limited test program, allowing Google to put its new high-tech cars on the road. State regulations require a human backup driver and passenger be present during the test drives.
It uses cameras inside to spot traffic lights and other things, and also uses this thing on the top, which is a scanning laser.
The technology in these cars is similar to what is already used in passenger jets. It's navigated by artificial intelligence and assisted by a global positioning system and motion sensors. A human driver can take control at any time by grabbing the wheel or stepping on the brake. But otherwise, the car is on autopilot, and the driver can just sit back and relax.
If you wish to drive it, just fine. If you wish to waste 52 minutes in commute traffic, go ahead, be my guest.
Florida may soon become the second state to allow Google self-driving cars on the road. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Up next, man's best friend. How service dogs are helping their owners both physically and emotionally.
John Mapes is 42, mortgage, married, 2 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. John can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $25 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll search the pick of insurers like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. John's wife, Carrie, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or visit SelectQuote.com.
Believe it or not, this is a catheter. It's the new SpeedyCath Compact for women. Now available from Liberator Medical, with full Medicare and private insurance reimbursement. Stay tuned for an exciting free offer. But first, meet Julie.
You know when you leave the house and you say, okay, I have my phone, I have my keys, I have my wallet, I'm good to go? Now, I always have to think of a catheter because I can't go without it. SpeedyCath came into my life and it is life-changing. They're tiny and thin, and you can fit them in your back pocket. You can fit them anywhere you need them. This is a lipstick or lip gloss, and this is the size of it. With this, you're only touching the outer plastic, and you're never actually in contact with the catheter itself. You just really have to give a sample. That's all it needs is one sample, and everyone's going to want them.
Now, here's that free offer I promised. Call Liberator Medical. Get your free SpeedyCath Compact Sample 6-pack. Shipping is free. 1-800-595-1446. 1-800-595-1446.
They're called man's best friend for a reason, and those reasons are growing. For one, they make great companions.
And they help our armed forces in battle. They fight crime next to our police officers and even comfort people who've suffered a disaster.
Yeah, and as Lori Johnson shows us, dogs are now helping save lives in a new way.
Service dogs meet a person's physical needs in ways that traditional medicine cannot. Their constant companionship can help the disabled manage everyday life. Mark Hagan is meeting his service dog, Chloe, for the very first time. She will help Mark with his dangerous type of diabetes.
In the last couple of years, I've gotten what's called hypoglycemic unaware, which means I can't sense what my blood sugar is doing. I can't tell if it's high. I can't tell if it's low. So I will drop into an unsafe area where I can't help myself any longer.
Chloe is so well trained that she can actually smell if Mark's blood sugar is too high or too low. She will then touch him with her paws, which alarms Mark, but is hardly noticeable to anyone else.
One of the things that everyone wants to make sure of is that when the service dog is out in public, it's well behaved, it's well mannered, and it's not being disruptive to the environment or to the people around it.
It took 9 months to transform Chloe from a rambunctious, untrained pooch to the trustworthy service dog she is today. Scott Smith and Mark Hackathorn have been training all types of service dogs for 30 years now. This is a winning situation for everyone, including the dogs, because many service dogs, like Tala here, are rescues. Mark searches Craigslist and the newspaper for dogs whose families no longer want them. He trains all breeds, but is partial to poodle mixes like Tala because many are hypoallergenic. He loves what he does, except saying goodbye.
It's a little sad sometimes because we're working with the dog so closely. But I realized that these dogs were really given to me through however they got to me to then get to people to help them save their life.
Service dogs vastly improve the lives of people who are blind, epileptic, deaf, or those at risk for heart attacks, stroke, and even panic attacks. Luis, a war veteran, suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder.
He's really a guardian angel of sorts, and I believe that God sends beings like Tuesday into our lives to help us on our journey.
Luis returned from Iraq with both physical and emotional wounds that left him afraid to leave his apartment. In his book, Until Tuesday, Luis describes how God is using Tuesday to heal him.
And in crowded places which can remind me of riots and difficult situations in Iraq, I can literally ask him to act as a buffer between a group of people and myself. He wakes me up from nightmares. He's been trained to do that, and he helps me walk. I have a spinal condition, so he balances me when I walk, particularly downstairs.
In addition to service dogs, therapy dogs also bring help and healing. These pets visit people with special needs. Abby here helps lift the spirits of tiny cancer patients at the Children's Hospital in Norfolk, Virginia.
There are studies that show that, people with chronic pain or chronic illnesses do have less stress, less anxiety, can kind of lower heart rate, kind of decrease blood pressure, and definitely do improve mood. when doing pet therapy.
Therapy dogs are special because they always have to be on good behavior.
They do not have to be trained nearly as thoroughly as service dogs, but therapy dogs do have to pass a test.
They have to be able to sit on command and down on command and stay, and some of the basic obedience. And then they do some more advanced stuff with them, like they have to be able to walk by food without gobbling it up, and they have to not be distracted. We do distractions with like wheelchairs and walkers and things that the dog might not see in everyday life.
Therapy dogs bring a lot of love to people in nursing homes and assisted living centers. The residents say holding the dogs makes them feel comfortable and relaxed.
She loves everybody. She doesn't bark. I've never really heard her bark.
So therapy dogs and service dogs take the nickname of man's best friend to a new level by offering help to the hurting. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
John Mapes is 42. Mortgage, married, 2 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. John can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $25 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll search the pick of insurers like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. John's wife, Carrie, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or visit SelectQuote.com.
Attention Medicare beneficiaries. Do you have breathing problems like asthma, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, or COPD? Then you may qualify for Medicare coverage of your respiratory medications. To see if you qualify, call Med4Home. Med4Home is a specialty pharmacy. They offer a wide variety of respiratory medications, which may be covered under your Medicare Part B benefits. Let Med4Home's team of experts work for you. They'll work directly with your doctor. They'll deliver right to your home and call you monthly for refills and to see how you're doing. Best of all, they'll handle the Medicare paperwork for you. It's so easy. And if you have supplemental insurance, there may be little or no out-of-pocket expense. Let Med4Home's team of experts work for you. Call Med4Home now to see if you qualify. For more information, call 1-800-321-0089. That's 1-800-321-0089.
A North Carolina Marine got the shock of a lifetime when he returned home from Afghanistan.
Yeah, his disabled son takes his first steps into his father's arms. Take a look at this. Staff Sergeant Jeremy Cooney enters the gymnasium to greet his family. He sees his young son and crouches down to wait for his 6-year-old son to stagger into his arms. Look at that.
Wow.
Now, Cooney's son suffers from crippling cerebral palsy. Doctors said he would never walk on his own. But amazingly, Cooney's wife and 3 children work with him, and he does walk. The family kept the miracle a secret until Sergeant Cooney came home. They posted the video on their website, the Welcome Home blog.
Wow, that was so powerful,
Isn't that
wasn't
great?
it? That was so precious.
We've done so many of these stories, but that may be one of the best ones yet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this edition of NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Good night.